Good morning, everyone. We have our highest registration ever this morning for this event. So welcome. Welcome very, very warmly to our Legal Laneway Breakfast for 2026. My name's Lynn Haltane. I'm the Executive Director of the Victoria Law Foundation, and we are delighted, as always, to host you and our illustrious speakers to mark the beginning of the legal year. We've done this now for 23 years, and I think we've had rain once, so I was delighted with the forecast this morning. So whatever your role in the law, whether it's in courts or tribunals, in firms or with legal assistance, or in a school lawyer program, as we heard about last year, it's always a great opportunity to meet and greet and consider the year ahead. First, I'd like to introduce Tim Goodwin, who'll be acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we stand this morning. Tim is a member of the Yuin Nation from the south-east coast of New South Wales, and before going to the bar, amongst many other things, Tim was an associate to Justice Morty Bromberg and Justice Tony North, whom I think is with us this morning. He was also a foreign law clerk at the Constitutional Court of South Africa, which I need to talk to you about, Tim. That sounds riveting. He was recently acting as junior counsel, assisting the Uruk Justice Commission in Victoria, as well as the Royal Commission into the Protection and Detention of Children in the Northern Territory. Tim, it's a privilege to have you with us. Thank you so much for being here, and I will pass to you.
Good morning. As the sun continues to rise on this summer's day, it remembers the ancientness of this land we meet on and the peoples that have looked after it since the first sunrise. Those peoples continue to care for, look after, and share stories of this country. Given that history and custodianship, which all Australians are bound to honour as beneficiaries of this ancient relationship, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of this special country, the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung peoples of the Eastern Kulin, and to all members of the Kulin Nation. I acknowledge their ancestors who continue to inhabit the land and are reborn in us as First Peoples, their elders who care for and teach the stories of country that bind us to it and ensure its protection, and to the entire Wurundjeri community whose survival through hardship and dispossession teaches us the power and resilience of our First Peoples and reminds us to be humble before the strength of their culture. As an Aboriginal person, I know that two laws operate on this land: Western or Australian law and Indigenous traditional law and custom. Indigenous traditional law and custom is not historic. It is vibrant and continues to exist. It continues to bind me as a Yuin person regarding my relationship with kin and my relationship with country. And so, in acknowledging the traditional owners of this country on the opening of the legal year, it is incumbent on all of us to remember the multiplicity of legal systems that operate and to continue the national project of ensuring those systems can peacefully coexist and have regard for each other in our contemporary world. Thank you.
Well, good morning to you all, and welcome to our annual Legal Laneway Breakfast with perfect weather, as Lynn said. I'm Greg Card, Chair of the Victoria Law Foundation. I'm pleased to see you all here today to celebrate the opening of the legal year with us. The breakfast started here over 2 decades ago and we have returned to Hardware Lane right here every year so that our legal community can catch up with friends and colleagues and mark the beginning of the legal year. Thank you sincerely to Tim Goodwin of the Victorian Bar and the Yuin people for his powerful acknowledgement of country, reminding us of the role we all play in tending to this environment that has been cared for by our First Peoples for so many generations. I welcome our speakers this morning, the Attorney-General, the Honourable Sonia Kilkenny MP, Member for Carrum, Chief Justice Richard Nile, our Chief Justice and of the Supreme Court of Victoria, and Fiona Macleay, Chief Executive Officer and Commissioner from the Victorian Legal Services Board. We look forward to hearing their insights, reflections and priorities for the year ahead. We are this morning well blessed with judges. There are very many prominent members of the profession with us. I welcome my Supreme Court colleagues, Jacinta Forbes, Kristen Walker, Melinda Richards, Stephen Donoghue and Ted Woodward, who is also the President of VCAT. I also welcome the Honourable Tony North, Chair of the Victorian Law Reform Commission, long-standing friend and indeed classmate long ago. I also welcome Chief Judge Amanda Chambers, Judges Kate Hawkins, Liz Brimmer, Mayanne Tran of the County Court, Magistrates Vin Caltabiano, a long-standing attendee, and Isabel Harrison, as well as Deputy President Raina Tang of VCAT, Tom Ballantyne, President of the Law Institute. Would you believe it? We have 28 commissioners, directors and chief executive officers of bodies in the legal services and the community legal sector who are present with us today. They are far too many, you'll be thankful, for me to read out. I welcome them all nonetheless. To put it all another way, this is a great networking opportunity. We have a packed program, so let's get underway. It's now my great pleasure to introduce our Attorney-General. It is a privilege to welcome her now to her second Legal Laneway Breakfast. The Honourable Sonia Kilkenny MP is, as I said, the Member for Carrum in the Legislative Assembly. She is also the Minister for Planning. The attorney built a career in commercial litigation, banking and finance law, also working with the Kimberley Land Council in Western Australia. She entered Parliament to champion for fair, accessible local services, a strong, inclusive community, envisaging Victoria as a vibrant place driven by innovation, education and equality, a vision I'm sure we all share. Well, welcome back, Attorney. We look forward to hearing your priorities for 2026. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Greg, and good morning. Can I too begin by acknowledging that we are on traditional lands of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung, and I pay my respects to elders past and present. I too acknowledge their unbroken connection to this country, honour their continuing custodianship of these lands, and extend my respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people joining us today. Thank you to Tim Goodwin, barrister and member of the Yuin people of the southeast coast of New South Wales, for his really warm and generous acknowledgement of welcome to country. Can I too also acknowledge just a few people: Chief Justice Richard Nile of the Supreme Court of Victoria, Justice Greg Gard, Chair of the Victoria Law Foundation, Fiona Macleay, Commissioner and CEO of the Victorian Legal Services Board, and Lynn Holtan, Executive Director of the Victoria Law Foundation, and of course, members of the Judiciary, commissioners, heads of peak bodies and legal organisations, and colleagues from across the legal community who are joining us today on this absolutely beautiful day here in Melbourne. Thank you again to the Victoria Law Foundation for all the work that goes into preparing, organising and hosting today's breakfast, and for bringing together what is such a broad and committed cross-section of Victoria's legal community, legal assistance services, community lawyers, pro bono practitioners, private firms, advocates, and reformers. Before I go on, I do want to acknowledge the recent bushfires that have devastated, absolutely devastated, so many communities right across Victoria. And we know for these communities, recovery is not just about rebuilding homes and infrastructure, it's about navigating things like insurance disputes, tenancy issues, employment disruption, financial distress, family law matters, and also profound personal loss. I do also want to acknowledge someone who's here today, and that is my colleague and very good friend in the Parliament, Sheena Watt, who is not only the local upper house member for this area, but also Parliamentary Secretary for Emergency Services. And I want to acknowledge all of her work throughout the bushfires that we're experiencing. And of course, when it comes to natural disasters, the bushfires, legal assistance is such a vital part of emergency response and recovery. And I have to say, I have been so genuinely impressed by how the entire legal sector has really mobilised to support these communities. I've seen staffing at evacuation and emergency recovery hubs showing up at community meetings, to building those strong referral pathways so people know where to turn. And it's really that willingness to just pitch in speaks volumes about the values of this profession, and we should all be really, really proud of that. And it's moments like this that remind us access to justice is not just that abstract concept. It is something that people actually rely on when their lives are unsettled, when systems often feel overwhelming, and when they are at their most vulnerable. And the reality is that the legal need today is becoming more complex and more interconnected. We are truly seeing cost of living pressures turn what might be small, relatively small legal problems into crisis points. We're seeing more people navigating insecure work, housing stress, and complex service systems, many often without legal literacy, confidence, or support. And we're seeing legal problems overlap, housing issues entangled with debt, family violence with employment and housing insecurity, mental health challenges layered throughout all of this. At its core, access to justice is about whether our system, our legal and justice system, is reachable, understandable, and fair, especially for those who need it most. So we all must continue to ask ourselves, how can we respond earlier, more effectively, and in ways that really reflect how people experience legal problems? One of the newer ways, of course, that we're beginning to meet people where they are is through AI. And when used thoughtfully and responsibly, AI can offer real opportunities to improve access to justice. We're already seeing practical examples of this right here in Victoria. The Coroner's Court of Victoria is embarking on work that uses AI to improve investigation processes and reduce psychosocial risk for staff exposed to harmful content. Justice Connect, with support from the National Access to Justice Partnership, is developing technology to improve intake and referral processes, helping clients reach the right help faster. And Victoria's Legal Aid Legal Help Chat is making legal problems easier to understand, providing people with information and pathways at the moment they need it. These tools are not about replacing the profession or professional judgment. They're about removing that friction, improving triage, and reaching people much earlier before problems escalate. But we all know technology will never be the sole answer. And at its heart, access to justice is and always will be about people and about partnerships. That's why today is also so important. You heard Greg say this is the biggest network opportunity that we probably have this year. And access improves when all of us talk together, when the sectors work together across jurisdictions, across disciplines, and across organisational boundaries. We see this clearly in health justice partnerships, where legal health is embedded in health settings, identifying issues earlier and intervening before they become entrenched. We see it too in cross-referral networks between community legal centres, Victoria Legal Aid, the private profession and pro bono services, ensuring people are guided to the right level of help rather than falling through the gaps. These partnerships matter because people do not experience their problems in neat categories, and our systems shouldn't expect them to. So when we bring all of this together, all of these elements together, people-centred design, thoughtful use of technology, and genuine collaboration, we move closer to a system, a justice system that truly meets people where they are. Access to justice is not achieved through any single program, institution, or reform. It is built step by step through shared knowledge, trusted relationships, and a willingness to adapt to real-world experience. Much of this work is already happening. We see innovation, we see cooperation, and we see a deep commitment to serving those who face the greatest barriers. The task ahead for all of us is to strengthen those connections, share what works, and design services that are simpler to reach and easier to navigate. Because we know that when the system truly works for the people who need it, that builds public confidence and trust in our systems. And building trust in our systems and institutions matters more now than it ever has before. Strengthening trust is essential to social cohesion and to the confidence people have in our democracy and rule of law. So I wish each and every one of you a very productive and purposeful year ahead. Thank you for all of the work that you do every day to make justice more accessible for Victorians. Thank you for having me, and I wish you a wonderful breakfast this morning.
Thank you so much, Attorney. They're very thoughtful remarks and beautiful acknowledgement of the work that has to be done when crisis strikes across the state. But clearly, as we're all very well aware, that doesn't stop, and the barriers to justice remain, and it is incumbent upon all of us, as you've said, to play our part in addressing that this year and every year. Let me introduce you now to our Chief Justice, Richard Nile. His honour is the 13th Chief Justice of Victoria, having taken office in February last year. You must be coming up for your first anniversary. I don't need to recite his CV to this audience beyond saying that the breadth of his legal experience as a barrister, as Solicitor General, and as a judge demonstrates an exceptional mind, a clearly evident curiosity, and a deep commitment to the law, all of which are outstanding attributes in legal leadership. And as you know, as well as his judicial responsibilities, the Chief Justice also chairs the Courts Council, the Judicial College and the Judicial Commission, making for an exceptionally busy schedule. So we appreciate enormously his time this morning. Please make him welcome, the Chief Justice.
Good morning, everyone. I too begin by acknowledging that we meet this morning on the traditional lands of the Eastern Kulin Nation. I pay my respects to the elders of the Wurundjeri people and all First Nations people who join us this morning. And I would like to thank Tim Goodwin for his very generous acknowledgement and his reminder of the relationships between First Nations law and our own law. And that's a really important part as members of the legal profession to acknowledge the traditional and very strong sense of law that our First Nations possess. May I also offer my particular support to our Jewish colleagues and friends who continue to suffer the sadness and pain of the horrific killings in Bondi at Hanukkah. The legal profession has been blessed in Victoria by a very strong tradition of Jewish lawyers. And it's no coincidence that the First Nations of our country have been well supported by the Jewish legal profession, the legal profession of Australia, and in particular of Victoria, of the Jewish faith and traditions. And that relationship, it is no coincidence, and it's something that I'd like to acknowledge. My thanks to the Law Foundation for inviting me to speak today, and I'd like to thank them for their continuing hard work under their chair, Greg Gard, and their CEO, Lynn Holton. It's an extremely important work, which I know that we all value. I'd like to acknowledge the Attorney-General, the Honourable Sonia Kilkenny MP, and thank her for her remarks and also her emphasis on the importance of innovation, which is something that I also hold dear. As Lynn observed, I was appointed in February last year, and this is my first Legal Laneway Breakfast as Chief Justice. In fact, yesterday was my first anniversary. This event was held on my first day of appointment on this day last year. And there's no more Melbourne way to celebrate an anniversary than in a laneway drinking coffee with friends. And I'm delighted to be here. One of the great joys of my first year of Chief Justice is seeing the legal profession in all its various aspects across the state, from admission ceremonies, which I preside over and which are a really enjoyable and exciting part of my job, to see the enthusiasm and the excitement of our newly admitted practitioners, from those ceremonies, but to also all of the other meetings and gatherings that I've attended, both formal and informal, such as this morning, in which I've had a chance to meet with and speak with members of the legal profession. And I continue to be, as I have been since an article clerk through to Chief Justice, enormously proud of the legal profession in Victoria. It is an incredibly strong, important and vibrant profession. What I have seen across the state, including in my trips to regional Victoria, which have been very informative and enjoyable, is the enormous quality and depth in the legal profession across the state. I'm also very proud to see diversity in the profession. I am a great believer that there is strength in diversity and that it allows talent and ability to shine, and that it is essential for community confidence in the profession and in the institutions to which we are all part. We have made great strides in diversity in the profession, and I think it is fair to say that it is no longer the preserve of a narrow part of society. But that work continues, and I look forward to growing diversity both in the profession and on the bench. But there is also important and valuable diversity in the role and function across the profession. And as I look across the crowd today and acknowledge all the important people who attend, it is wonderful to see the diversity of function, how we have lawyers in private practice, in government, in the community sector, through the very important Federation of Community Legal Centres, and I had the great privilege of addressing one of their meetings last year, and I was inspired by the great work that the Federation and all its members do. In the not-for-profit sectors, in-house counsel, barristers, solicitors and fellow members of the judiciary. There's an enormous depth of experience, depth of role, and there are differences in the approach that we all take to our day-to-day work. But although these roles differ, I think it's fair to say that all members of the profession share a central belief in the importance of the rule of law and of strong institutions which support and represent the rule of law. Institutions such as the courts that protect us and give meaning and content to the rule of law for all of the members of the community. I'm sure that all of us here today are united in recognising that each of us play a critical role in upholding the rule of law and facilitating the administration of justice in Victoria. That work, across all its dimensions, is pivotal to social harmony and cohesion. It's pivotal and critical to economic success, and it's essential for the stability of our community. As the head of the judiciary, I can say that I am enormously proud of the judiciary in this state. It is comprised of hard-working, conscientious and talented people who are committed to service in aid of their community. I recognise, as we all must, that being a human institution, the judiciary is not perfect. But with all my colleagues, I see a desire to improve, to innovate, and to constantly drive perfection and excellence in the judiciary. I would acknowledge the great commitment and service that our judicial officers and tribunal members give to this state with their great skill and dedication. An important part of my job is to represent the judiciary and the profession and work on ways to maintain and enhance the public's respect, trust and confidence in the courts, the tribunals and the legal profession as a whole. There's no certain way to achieve respect, trust and confidence, but we all know how important it is. But to my mind, critical to that pursuit is excellence in all that we do and communication, so that the community continue to see courts as a vital part of their community. Communication is not an easy exercise when dealing with complex and difficult issues. But it's important that courts communicate in ways that the community can understand, because it's that understanding, in part that understanding of the complexity of the role, which ensures their continued trust and confidence in us. Each of us, all of you, play an important role in the administration of justice through the work that you do every day. You should each be proud of the work that you do, and you should each be proud of being a member of the Victorian legal profession. Although the courts don't close and there's judges available every day of the year and every hour of the day, we do take this opportunity of the start of the calendar year, refreshed somewhat from a break, to reflect on the year ahead. No doubt some of us are carrying files from the previous year that we wished had been brought to an end before the year end, but we've got to return to that work. We've got to return to our labours. And I wish you all an enjoyable and successful year as you undertake your important role. Let us look out and support for each other and recognise that we are all united in purpose as members of a very proud and strong Victorian legal profession. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Chief Justice. I think I'm very struck by the consistency in the remarks from both our Attorney General and our Chief Justice around excellence, fairness, service, and the ongoing commitment we have to providing the best possible access to justice for all Victorians. Let me pass now to our final speaker this morning, Fiona McClay, a regular at this event, Chief Executive Officer and Commissioner of the Victoria Legal Services Board and Commission. She was appointed in January 2018 and then reappointed in January 2023. Many of you will be very familiar with Fiona's background before the VLSB as CEO of Justice Connect, as General Counsel with World Vision and at Clayton Utz, a list of CV achievements that I think sets her up exceptionally well to be our regulator. She's also held very many board roles and is currently co-chair of Equality Australia and chair of the Australian Communities Foundation. Please make her welcome, Fiona McClay.
Well, good morning, everyone. One of my favourite events of the year. I may have been at the first one, but I wouldn't possibly admit that, but I've been to very many of them in this glorious laneway. I love the contrast between the old and the new. Standing where I was, you can see the new coming up. Some of those buildings were not there 23 years ago. And I think it's a reminder of the connection that we have as the profession as well, with tradition and the future. Of course, we're standing on Wurundjeri land, and I want to pay my respects to the traditional owners of that land. I'm privileged to live and to work and to play on this extraordinary country, and thank you to Tim for his generous and characteristically generous welcome this morning. The Board and Commissioner are very proud to support the introduction of treaty in Victoria, and it was an opportunity for us to recommit ourselves to reconciliation and to partnership with First Peoples. So as the Chief Justice has mentioned, it's the start of the legal year, new things and perhaps some things that have carried over from the year before. It's busy work being a lawyer wherever you are across our diverse sector. So this is a great opportunity to pause and to reflect and to re-establish a connection with our purpose. I'm very proud to be your regulator, and I'm very proud of the vast majority of the lawyers that I regulate. You do amazing work, and we do see that actually at the Commissioner and the Board, particularly through the funding that the Board provides to so many important pieces of work that so many of you do. Of course, being a lawyer is not just a career, it's a profession. Indeed, for many of us, it's a vocation. Legal careers ask us to serve more than our own interest, the very definition of a profession. We are called to serve the community, the public good, the administration of justice, and the rule of law itself. It's fast becoming a cliche to say that we live in uncertain times. The world is changing, and the role of legal professionals is more vital than ever as living agents of the rule of law, a term I borrow with thanks from Professor Stephen Vaughan, who is the Dean at Monash University Law School. I commend you for taking on this mantle as living agents of the rule of law every day in the work that you do. At the Board and Commissioner, we're committed to supporting you in this important work. We are a modern regulator. We have evidence-based policies and guidance which we develop to support you all to rise to the challenges and the opportunities that you face as a profession. In 2026, we are focusing on supporting early career lawyers, and I can see many of you out here this morning, which is just a delight. Supporting you in your well-being, on the principled and ethical use of artificial intelligence, which, as our attorney has said, has much promise as well as a need to be ethical in its use. And of course, continuing to fund so many programs and organisations across the profession in Victoria. I'm sure you all look out for the Commissioner updates that arrive in your email inboxes regularly. And if you don't, perhaps you should. And there's lots of great information in there. That's where you'll hear about other work that we're doing to support you. We've got some really important work underway on vicarious trauma, tools and resources to support you in that. And a new risk outlook, which some of you will recall we have started to introduce at the beginning of every year to set a broader context to guide you in your practice and also to signal areas of focus for the Board and Commissioner. So it just remains for me to do as our Attorney and Chief Justice have done and to wish you all the best in 2026, not just in your legal work but also in your own well-being. This year, more than ever, Victoria is relying on a strong and independent and ethical legal profession to help people resolve their problems, support the rule of law and serve the administration of justice. I have every confidence that that's exactly what you'll do. Thank you.
Thank you, Fiona, for your words and for the work of your team throughout the year, particularly around wellbeing and vicarious trauma, which is one of those issues that has, I think, become more prominent, thankfully, in recent years. Before we wrap, I'd like to give you a very quick snapshot, promise it'll be quick, about the work of the Victoria Law Foundation since we gathered last year. Our research program continues to generate critical insights into access to justice, informing and supporting the sector to deliver for all Victorians. And we're about to complete a major piece of work looking at the elements of success in legal assistance service delivery, which we hope will spark further conversations and investigations on the road to improving justice. This year, for the first time, we are giving away $1 million in grants, and that's an extraordinary milestone for us, covering an impressive range of projects. Thank you. Everything from supporting citizenship through to legal data collection around climate disaster. So an enormous spread of support for projects that are in, I think, exceptionally good shape to deliver insights for further access to justice challenges down the road. It is so heartening for us to play our part in supporting better use of data and service design. Our work with young people will ramp up shortly with a new research project, and meanwhile, our engagement with schools and TAFEs around the state continues. The team does an absolutely brilliant job in making it available for teenage Victorians to become more aware of their law. And we are so grateful for the support of so many, including NARM lawyers, Vic Barr, and the perennially energetic Paul Dorr, Juries Commissioner, who plays a very special part in our program. Thank you to them. And I can't let you go without my annual plug for the Law Week, which is coming up very quickly, will be upon us before we know it, 18th to the 24th of May. Put it in your diaries. So start thinking about how you're going to be involved with Law Week this year. And together with the consistently impressive program of events that is run every year by so many of you, we are in tandem this year for the first time running a social media campaign on everyday civil legal issues, responding in a new way to the insights that we gleaned from our Public Understanding of Law survey. What we know is that people don't see the law in their problem, and consequently they don't look for legal information or legal assistance. This campaign will focus on people's experience of problems in things like housing, employment, family relationships, and other diverse experiences of civil legal life, and where to go to for help. So keep your eye on Facebook and Instagram from April, and we would look forward very much to your feedback on that. Well, I hope you've enjoyed our Legal Laneway Breakfast this year. My great thanks, as always, to the VLF team who have shepherded and herded and organised me and made this morning possible, particularly to Vicky Doig and Nick Tavasoli, and to our Auslan interpreter, Brooke, who does an amazing job every year. Thank you to you all for coming, and again to all our speakers. Have a fine day and a superb legal year. See you again soon.